Good afternoon and welcome. I'd like to thank you all for coming. My name is Joseph D'Amico. I'm Superintendent of the New York State Police. Today you'll be hearing from Assemblyman David Lieberman, Senator Carl Marcelino, Mr. Ben Lieberman, and finally, Governor Andrew Cuomo. Since taking office, Governor Cuomo has championed efforts that make the safety of New Yorkers a top priority. That includes safety on our roads and our highways. In 2011, the governor signed a new law that strengthened the enforcement of texting while driving. It made using a handheld electronic device while driving, such as texting, a primary traffic offense, which allows law enforcement to stop a driver just for texting while driving. Also in 2011, we raised the penalty for using handheld devices while driving from 2 to 3 points. A few weeks ago, the governor directed the Department of Motor Vehicles to again raise that penalty, and it's gone from 3 to 5 points. And recognizing that texting while driving remains a deadly trend that's on the rise, especially among our younger drivers, the governor proposed legislation that strengthens penalties for texting while driving for young and new drivers. Today, I'm happy to announce that this legislation is being signed into law. Under current law, probationary and junior licenses are suspended for 60 days for violations such as speeding and reckless driving. If there's another violation within 6 months of that license being restored, probationary licenses are then revoked for 6 months and junior licenses for 60 days. This new law imposes those same penalties for drivers with probationary and junior licenses for texting while driving. This will give texting while driving the same severity of punishment that this dangerous habit deserves, and it's effective immediately with the signing of this bill. Our younger drivers grew up with all this technology at their fingertips, and they may not recognize the danger of using this technology and getting behind the wheel. This new law will provide more protection for motorists and help prevent accidents that are completely avoidable. Finally, as law enforcement, whose responsibility it is to keep these roads safe, this law will help us to do our jobs better. Now it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Assemblyman David Lieberman.
Thank you, Superintendent D'Amico. Since Governor Andrew Cuomo took office just 2.5 years ago, he has been a real champion in the fight against distracted driving. Working with him, we have made New York the leading state in the nation on cracking down on texting while driving, and we are at the forefront of updating and enforcing our laws. In 2011, as Superintendent D'Amico mentioned, we passed a law that gave law enforcement the authority to stop drivers solely for using electronic devices while driving. It has been an overwhelming success, but texting and driving still endangers too many people on our roads, and the danger is particularly high for new drivers. For the security of everyone on the road, we must instill safe driving habits in our younger generation, and that is why the law Governor Andrew Cuomo is signing here today is so important and necessary. I too, like Governor Cuomo, have twins that, in my case, are very recent drivers. So I am particularly grateful, Governor, for your leadership on this particular issue. This law creates strong new penalties that will make texting while driving violations for inexperienced drivers similar to those for speeding and reckless driving, because texting while driving is just as dangerous. As a staunch advocate for consumer and driver safety, the health and safety of all New Yorkers takes primary importance to me. That's why I joined with Assemblyman Ed Hennessy in co-sponsoring Assembly Bill 7739, because cracking down on texting while driving will prevent accidents in New York that are avoidable. I am proud to join the governor in his efforts to protect New York drivers all across the state of New York. I'm now pleased to introduce my colleague in the State Senate, State Senator Carl Marcelino.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I thank you, Governor, for inviting me. I was given something to read, but I would, except it's too light and my glasses won't work. So, but I don't need this script. Thank God, and I do every day, that we have a governor that gets it. A governor that understands the danger of texting while driving. This is worse than drinking while driving. Everybody understands drinking while driving is a terrible thing and people die from it. 3,000 young people every year die from texting while driving. Over 330,000 are injured on our roads while texting while driving. Perhaps because the governor has children of his own, and I have grandchildren not yet ready to drive, but coming close, that we understand that this has to stop. The carnage amongst our young people, the death rate, the injury rate amongst our young people has got to stop. We need to change the legacy going forward. Thank you, Governor, for understanding that. Thank you for sending the legislation and providing the leadership that is needed in this state to fight this scourge. It is a terrible, terrible scourge on our people and our constituents. I've actually had people come to me and say, Senator, why do you waste your time on such a silly thing, texting while driving? And I find it incredible, and I have to hold myself back. And I tell them, look, I find it, there's no there's no more important thing that I can be doing than protecting the health and well-being of my constituents. The governor gets it, the legislative leaders get it, you all get it. It's time that we pass this law, we sign this law into effect, and make sure that our police are armed with the tools they need to be armed with so that they can help stop this scourge. If you have children, talk to them. If you have friends who have children, talk to them. Become a real pain in the you-know-what, because it will save their lives and perhaps the lives of your children and yourself on the road. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure now to introduce Ben Lieberman, who can give you more details as to what is real pain that can occur when texting while driving is not obeyed. Mr. Lieberman.
Thank you, Senator Marcelino. Thanks a lot. That was really well said. And thank you, Governor, for inviting me to join you once again. A few weeks ago, I joined the Governor also in New York City to share my story and show how this legislation affects real New Yorkers like me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ben Lieberman. I'm from Chappaqua. 2 summers ago, I received a phone call that changed my family forever. It was around 10 a.m. when I was told that my son, Evan, was in a car crash and being medevaced to Westchester Medical Center. It was summer and Evan was home after his first year of college. He was heading to his summer job in Woodbury Commons near the Bear Mountain Bridge, and just 40 minutes away from our house. He was carpooling with 3 fellow college boys. He was sitting in the back seat with his seatbelt on. By 7 p.m., after his 3rd operation of the day, I was told he had a 10% chance to live through the night. The seatbelt saved his life, but the force and inertia caused critical internal damage. Evan made it through that night and 31 other nights. Being a healthy 19-year-old has its advantages in a situation like this. However, Evan had to endure 15 operations and an incredible amount of blood transfusions. The human body holds 5 liters of blood, and Evan needed a staggering 95 liters of transfusion. That is like refilling your body 19 times in 32 days. But he was a fighter, and we were grateful for that. For a whole month, our family lived in that hospital. Evan's condition was up and down and sometimes very hopeful, but on the 32nd day, right in front of our eyes, we lost him. That was July 18th, so we're a few weeks away from that anniversary. The memory is no less vivid, and I can't imagine it ever will be. The driver, who was also a teenager, told authorities that he fell asleep at the wheel. The day after the crash, he apologized to the boys through Facebook and said he was exhausted and taking those 1-second naps at the wheel. But he also testified that he had slept at 11 p.m. and had plenty of rest the night before. That didn't make sense to me, so I needed to learn more. Through much effort, we brought our case before an administrative judge who ruled that the driver who crashed the car violated several traffic laws, including, and most notably, using his cell phone while driving. His license was suspended for a year. That verdict was only a few months ago. The driver lost his license temporarily, but we lost Evan forever, and it's hard not to feel that loss every single minute of every single day. In memory of Evan, we started a foundation called Evan's Team, which is doing nice work with Westchester Medical Center. We also started an organization called DORCS. It stands for Distracted Operators Risk Casualties, and we want to keep the dorks off the road. Our idea is to do for texting and smartphone driving what Mothers Against Drunk Driving did for drinking. We want to advocate for legislation and penalties that will deter this destructive behavior. Drivers need to worry about the lives that are in their hands and not the cell phones that are in their hands. Speaking here about this is obviously very difficult for me, but it is not the most difficult thing I've ever done. It's much more difficult to write my son's eulogy. That's why it's important for our family to be here today with Governor Cuomo and our state leaders to sign this bill into law. The governor proposed these changes to our law only a month ago, and now it's being implemented to stop this epidemic. We believe epidemic is the correct description. Teenagers throughout generation have always been fearless and inexperienced, but there's something new with this generation, and that's an addiction to smartphones. Along with fearless and inexperienced, add every beep and chime, drawing attention off the road. This is a very dangerous combination. Today's new law will send a loud and clear message that taking your eyes off the road to check your phone is unsafe and puts others at risk. It is a major step forward in combating this dangerous trend, and I'm confident that it'll help save lives. I'm grateful to be part of the governor's efforts and for his quick actions to protect New Yorkers on the road, because no other parent should have to experience the loss of a child to a text or smartphone distraction. Thank you for this opportunity to speak here today and to use this platform to speak about an important issue in our lives. Now, it's my honor to introduce the Governor of the State of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you. First, to Mr. Lieberman, we applaud your courage, sir, and we can only imagine the pain and anguish that you and your family went through. But it speaks volumes of you to have the courage to get up and tell your story and take that energy and channel it in a positive way, so that others may learn and others may not go through the same suffering that you and your family went through. I'd also like to acknowledge Debbie Lieberman, who's here, and Jamie Lieberman and Raquel Lieberman. Thank you very much for everything you do. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. I'd like to thank Superintendent Joseph D'Amico for his leadership on this issue, and Assemblyman David Weprin and Senator Carl Marcelino. You heard from the Senator the passion that he feels on this issue. He's been a driving force on this issue for many, many months, and he's exactly right. You've heard the facts, you've heard the statistic. The trends are all frightening on this issue. The numbers are going in the wrong direction. There are more fatalities and injuries caused by texting and distracted driving than by drunk driving. And that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. Where we're making progress on drunk driving, the numbers are going the wrong way. On distracted driving, again, they're going up. So we have a lot of work to do in this area. It's literally about changing behavior, and behavior doesn't change easily. We've done it before, but it takes a lot of effort. We did it with the seatbelt law. At one time, nobody wore a seatbelt. They were in the car, but just nobody put them on. It was unheard of to wear the seatbelt. And little by little, we changed the behavior, we changed the orientation, and now it's the exact opposite. Now it's unimaginable for people to get into a car and not wear a seatbelt. Same thing on drunk driving. At one time, it was, I wouldn't say commonplace, but it was much more common for people to have a drink and get in the car and drive, or have a couple of drinks at dinner and get in the car and drive. We change that behavior pattern over time. How do you do it? Part of it is education. Senator Marcelino is exactly right. Talk to your children, talk to your young people, explain it to them. It's education. Part of it is socialization. It's peer understanding, it's peer pressure. It's not okay for people to do this. It's not fun. It's not cool. If you're in a car with someone who's talking on the cell phone or texting, you have to let them know it's not okay. And part of it is society standing up and saying we're going to pass laws that will penalize and punish this behavior. We passed a law. New York was the first state in the nation to pass a law that said you must wear a seatbelt. It was the first state in the nation to do that. But when the state did it, it was unheard of. But that is a big part of changing the behavior. And that's what we're doing today, thanks to the leadership of Assemblymember Weprin and Senator Carl Marcelino. We're passing a law that increases the penalties, especially for young drivers. Now, we already increased the penalty for regular drivers, 5 points on your license for a ticket as a primary offense, distracted driving. 5 points is a lot of points. This is not just a young people problem. This is a driver-wide problem. And 5 points is a lot of points. So people better think twice before they use their cell phone or they text while they drive. But it is an especially difficult problem with young people. And that's why today's law is so important. Because young drivers, probationary drivers, will incur a significant and substantial penalty and suspension if they get found guilty of this infraction. Why? Because we want young drivers to know right away this is not okay. And we want to establish a behavior pattern right away for young drivers that says, we know this is a big part of your life. We know it's an appendage attached to your body, not when you drive the car. Not when you drive the car. I know it looks easy to drive a car. I know it looks like you don't even have to pay attention. You happen to be wrong. You happen to be wrong. I don't know how else to say it. Assemblyman Weprin and the senator spoke about having young people and young people who become drivers. My twins are just becoming drivers, Cara and Mariah. And basically, what I say to them on this issue is, you're just going to have to trust me. I know you may not fully appreciate the damage, and you may not fully appreciate the danger, but you're just going to have to trust me. And you're just going to have to follow the law, because the law is quite clear and quite severe on this. And for young people, we're saying inattention and inexperience can be a death sentence. Inattention and inexperience can be a death sentence. Inattention, those 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds that you look down to answer the text, that period of inattention is all the time in the world. Inexperience behind the wheel, there is something to experience. There is something to just driving for a number of years where the experience makes you a better driver. And the lack of that experience puts you at a disability when you're driving a car. You put those two things together, that inattention and the inexperience, and it is a toxic combination. And that's what this law is supposed to say to you today. I again applaud the legislature for passing this law on short notice. I applaud Senator Marcelino for his leadership on this issue. I thank the Assembly member for sponsoring the bill in the Assembly. I want to thank the state police who will be carrying out this law and the police departments all across this state, because the law is only as good as enforcement. Mr. Lieberman and the entire Lieberman family, thank you once again for your leadership on this issue. Please join me and we'll sign the bill into law.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you once again for coming. This concludes our program.